Hello everybody, good morning to LA. Currently a research fellow at the Asian Civilizations Museum in Singapore, I am a conservator normally based in Lisbon, Portugal. Since 2007, I have been studying 16th and 17th century lacquered Luso-Asian artifacts that I first encountered during conservation projects. Never heard of this term Luso-Asian? The prefix Luso derives from the ancient Roman province in Lusitania on the Iberian Peninsula that covered the territory of today's Portugal. And by Luso-Asian, I refer to artifacts related to the European presence along the Asian coastline in the scope of Portuguese ventures and Catholic missions in the 16th and 17th centuries. The network that linked trading posts at the African coastline with ports in India, Southeast Asia, Macau and Japan was called the Portuguese state of India. This presence resulted in objects featuring exceptionally diverse cultural and artistic influences, including manufacture in one locale and decoration elsewhere. For such multiple geographical origins and craft contributions, the term Luso-Asian seems to fit best. Though generally neglected or considered of low quality and no great artistic value, Luso-Asian lacquers document a period of scarce concrete knowledge and limited documental evidence. They deserve appropriate appreciation and conservation. After examining numerous items in the scope of a PhD's research, I want to share curious outcomes with you and illustrate how the conservator's closer look, combined with material analysis, can contribute to a better classification, the writing of history and material culture, and turn poorly decorated-looking items into messengers of the past. This presentation shows that hidden details in items commissioned by Catholic missionaries reveal at various levels patterns of exchange, mutual influences, and circulation, embodying the manifold cultural interactions of the meeting of Europeans with Asian cultures in the early modern period. Catholic European presence in Asia mingled cultural backgrounds and social strata of various spiritual beliefs, habits, forms, interests, and tastes. The wide Portuguese trading network along the Asian coast fostered a special liking in lucrative commodities, precious and exotic materials available at the different seaports. Their taste applied to all sorts of artifacts and reverberated in the way they acquired or ordered Asian lacquer objects, and, of course, in how artisans replied to this demand. All portable objects, they include parade shields, various types of furniture, and religious items. They largely copy the typologies used on the Iberian Peninsula, as well as various carpentry traditions. Several have intricately carved structures of tropical hardwood, and all are lacquered and embellished with gold. Their decorations generally mingle Chinese auspicious symbols with European themes, such as coat of arms or Christian subjects. My research was inspired by the inconsistent characteristic of the artifact's physical features with their classification, which attempted to identify a single place of manufacture for each. This resulted in individual attributions to India, Southeast Asia, China, Japan, the Ryukyu Kingdom, and even various places in Europe. Yet discrepancies between their wooden structures and lacquer embellishments called for a deeper inquiry that would combine formal analysis with historical contextualization and technical investigation of their lacquer coatings. In an earlier lecture, Marian Webb has already introduced undercard lacquer and its complex pathologies. However, as not everybody might be familiar with it, I will briefly introduce the material. With a millennia-old history, Asian lacquer is the viscous and milky sap tapped from the bark of certain trees that grow over a large area in Southeast and East Asia. A complex organic material with peculiar properties, it has been used as glue and as a protective and decorative coating due to its ability to polymerize into a stable, durable film. This includes multi-layered applications, each of which requires time to cure, a complex, lengthy process consisting of many different steps that may involve several individuals. A variety of decorative options can produce impressive artifacts. Across Asia, unique lacquer craft traditions have developed and interacted over centuries. Chemically, a water and oil emulsion, the lacquer sap's main components are catechol and derivatives, generally dubbed urushiol, lacquer, and thitziol, which can be distinguished using scientific analysis. The sap of Toxicodendron venicifluum, native to China, Korea, and Japan, contains urushiol. The sap of Toxicodendron succedanea that occurs mainly in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and southern China contains lacquer. The sap of Melanoria usitata, native to Southeast Asian regions of today's Myanmar and Thailand, contains thitziol. Though this slide shows their approximate geographical distribution, it does not reveal that these may overlap. Analysis of Asian lacquer has been challenging, as once polymerized it becomes insoluble. This study applied analytical methodology and software tools developed at the Getty Conservation Institute and Museum to the samples collected from the specimens, and enjoyed analytical support by the GCI. In addition to identifying lacquer type, it also distinguished mixed organic materials. Separated under the microscope, individual layers were analyzed to determine specific oils, drying oils, resins, or proteins. Scanning electron microscopy identified inorganic materials and revealed their distribution in cross-sections, as shown in the slide. Identifying precise formulations, assessing layer sequence, and classifying decorative techniques allowed the attribution to specific lacquer traditions. Results revealed ground layers composed of iron-rich clay mixed with drying oil, such as tung or perilla, and protein, often identified as blood. Coatings mainly consisted of lacquer mixed with drying oil, with urushi present in only a few finishing or ball layers. Yet whatever their typology, wood type or carpentry tradition, secular or religious use, all specimens shared Chinese characteristics in their lacquer coatings. Decorations using gold leaf or shell gold combined with needle drawing on red or black backgrounds were the most common, but incised gilded lines, mother-of-pearl application and oil lithoage painting also appear. All are typical of traditional Chinese conventions and mentioned in the 16th century Ming Chinese treatise on lacquer, Xiuxi Lu, thus presenting contemporary craft traditions. This treatise also mentions the differences in quality and the use of simplified techniques and substitute materials, such as drying oil and animal blood, practiced by Chinese artisans on inferior objects for everyday use. Indeed, common to all specimens are layer structures and compositions indicative of cheaper and faster production methods. The same procedures are typical for Chinese export lacquerware of the 18th and 19th centuries. With this brief overview, I'll focus on those objects that link to the Catholic missions of the Society of Jesus. These liturgical artifacts proved fruitful sources, as they are easily attributable to a certain time frame, geographical area, and historical context. Striking, especially on Jesuit objects, is their combination of mother-of-pearl and motifs in gold, representing black surfaces profusely filled with plant and animal motifs. Because they resemble the characteristic decorative scheme of Japanese Nanban lacquerware, many are still classified as such. Arriving in India in 1542, the newly founded Society of Jesus soon became the most active Catholic congregation in Asia. It reached Japan in 1549, where it monopolized missionary work until 1593. In the mid-16th century, Macau became the most lucrative center of Portuguese trade between China and Japan, Jesuit headquarters of both missions and a place of interest for other missionaries. Across this vast region, numerous Jesuit missions educated Indian, Japanese, Chinese, European or other students, and trained missionaries for their work. Missions in East Asia, far from Europe, and the established industry for devotional items centered in Goa, required all kinds of furniture, imagery, and religious utensils. Records and several objects attest that they sated the increasing demand also with works from India. Embroidered silk textiles, porcelain, sculptured ivory sands enclosed in wooden oratories circulated among missions in India, Japan, and China. 16th and 17th century Christian art produced in Asia echoes the distinctive backgrounds of the hosting cultures. Above all, the Jesuits tailored their evangelization to the societies they wished to convert, taking advantage of compatible imagery and conventions already present. By borrowing symbols from local beliefs, they established connections between domestic and Christian imagery to express their optimistic message of salvation. Thus, Jesuit religious items present a combined visual vocabulary. In Japan and China, they adapted lacquer traditions closely associated with spiritual belief and ritual since antiquity. Motifs rich in Chinese symbolism, styled and understood by East Asian craftsmen according to their own conventions, created exotic renderings of a wholly different emblematic vocabulary. Such ambiguity appears as material evidence of direct missionary influence in commissioning them. When referring to Japanese Nanban decorations, I focus on productions that mainly include diverse kinds of portable receptacles and numerous liturgical items, manufactured specially for the Society of Jesus for their missions on the Japanese archipelago, such as pyxes, oratories, mass book lecterns, or reliquaries. An impressive number of liturgical Nanban pieces, embellished with the Jesuits' emblem, illustrate their practice of utilizing objects to spread their faith. Many of these pieces survive in Iberian or New Spanish churches, monasteries, or convents, and in museums and private collections around the world, attesting to the extent of the Jesuit network. Their European shape and Nanban lacquer coatings distinguish them from domestic kdda-Style decorations practiced by contemporary Japanese lacquer artisans. Common decorative scenes include autumn grasses and seasonal plants drawn freehand, depicted in flat gold or silver makie and nashiji, against a spacious black background. In contrast to these Japanese domestic wear, foreign commissioned Nanban lacquer pieces feature black surfaces completely covered with these contrasting flora and fauna motifs in three different hues: gold and silver makie and mother of pearl. Sections are framed by a variety of single or multiple decorative bands. The opulent use of mother of pearl does not correspond to the Japanese aesthetics. This new exotic style may derive from the influences of Korean lacquer art and Portuguese commissions from the Indian Gujarat. Yet techniques and motifs were traditional Japanese and derived from the style developed in Kyoto, here adapted to Catholic European preference. What at first glance resembles Nanban lacquer, on closer inspection is actually very different in formal and technical details. While Nanban formulations feature urushi lacquer, sometimes combined with the cheaper Southeast Asian tsitsi lacquer and never lacquer, Nanban style and other Luso-Asian formulations employ mainly lacquer and only rarely urushi lacquer, occasionally mixed with tsitsi. Despite of several differences, Nanban foundations never consist of blood, while Nanban-style ground layers never contain any lacquer sap. Nanban decorations combine three contrasting hues of gold and silver makie with mainly abalone shell on black backgrounds, but never use gold leaf. Luso-Asian Nanban style decorations showcase on red and black backgrounds motifs of gold leaf and shell gold, combined with fragments of green turban shell. Obviously, Nanban liturgical items circulating within Luso-Asian and Jesuit networks inspired the lacquering of religious items used in Macau and the China mission. But for their Jesuit clients, Chinese craftsmen clearly employed simpler and faster technologies and stylistically adjusted a variety of local auspicious designs to the Nanban models. Southern Chinese Nanban style decorations feature various combinations, either gold leaf painting and shell application, a combination of gold leaf, mother of pearl, and red lacquer, gold leaf combined only with red lacquer, gold decoration using shell gold combined with mother of pearl, or gold leaf, shell gold, and mother of pearl combined with red lacquer, and a Chinese mimicry of nashiji using red lacquer mixed with shell gold. Surfaces are framed by very different but also manifold varieties of decorative bands of straight or wavy gold lines with spirals or stylized flowers. These assorted combinations may indicate distinct time frames, locations, workshops, or even an evolution of style. But also the wooden structures may point to other origins. Furniture type or the use of carved tropical hardwood such as teak point to Goa in India. From the mid-16th century onward, Jesuit headquarters and a primary production center for devotional items. Some of these pieces then received lacquer decoration locally. For example, the typology and assemblage of this carved oratory destined to house a religious figure are identical to other examples manufactured on the Indian subcontinent. Yet it obviously has received its lacquer coating in Japan according to Nanban aesthetics. Similarly suggesting the circulation of objects among Catholic missions, this polygonal teak wood oratory, now missing its dome, also once housed a religious figure, typical of liturgical artifacts produced for the Catholic missions in Goa. The gilded surfaces of its segmented doors feature the Jesuit monogram and intertwined letters A and M for Auspicious Maria. Their black lacquered interiors retain traces of Nanban-style ornamentation, foliage in gold leaf, and vestiges of a decorative band of lozenges of shell etched by a double line of gold. This mixing of craft traditions highlights the travels of the oratory itself. Analysis identifying tsitsi lacquer in the exterior coating also revealed the circulation of raw materials. This shows that Chinese artisans serving the Jesuits met the demand for religious implements by utilizing this imported sap, a detail already detected in Japanese Nanban lacquerware. Identical decorative bands appear on several Jesuit massbook lecterns, probably copied by Chinese or mixed-race artisans after circulating models. Decorated in the same Nanban mimicking style, these display plain hardwood boards in a different construction from typical Nanban lecterns, which usually have a horizontal wood bar affixed to the backrest upper edge to prevent the board from bending. The first in the collection of Singapore's Asian Civilizations Museum shows the Jesuit monogram on a background of 6 pointed stars in gold leaf and mother of pearl. It depicts auspicious motifs of bamboo, flowering plum, peach, and cherry branches, magpies and squirrels. Framing the 4 corner quadrants are decorative bands of lozenges of shell within gold lines, identical to those in the oratory. A second lectern is in the Museu Nacional Grão Vasco in Portugal. Despite large lacquer losses, the Jesuit monogram on a background of gilded dots is still visible, along with motifs of flowering plum and magpies. These Chinese symbols frequently appear on such Nanban-style religious pieces, mingled with others that carry Christian symbolism. To the Chinese, a promising message indicating the arrival of a happiness, In Christian iconography, the plum is considered a symbol of fidelity. It seems no coincidence that such double-meaning icons adorn liturgical objects. The upper rims of both panels display decorative bands with a karakusa scroll on the backrest, rather common in Nanban lacquerware, and the lower panel shows traces of the same lozenges border of shell. Rescued from the rubble of a Lisbon construction site decades ago and in disastrous condition, this lectern soon will undergo scientific analysis. With borders of lozenges of shell, its overall decoration resembles the first two. But while the others limit the color palette to gold leaf and shell application, this specimen includes red lacquer in a 3U scheme characteristic of Nanban decorations. Its exposed wooden structure reveals a hint to the region of its likely origin or use, a Chinese inscription. If this were not exciting enough, the characters include the name Aomen, the Chinese term for the territory that since the 17th century Europeans have known as Macau. The remnant coating and ornament allows recognition of the original pattern centered upon the Jesuit emblem. Like the lectern in Viseu, it appears against the background of gilded dots, and its lateral edges again display traces of a karakusa scroll. This hanging oratory not only replicates Nanban aesthetics, but also a shape identical to a fully Japanese Nanban oratory in the Kyushu National Museum. Yet, it employs Chinese construction methods and lacquer embellishment using gold leaf and shades of red, abstaining completely from mother of pearl. The doors feature, within double-line borders, long-tailed birds, peacocks, phoenixes, flying magpies, or a pair of squirrels, amid flowering branches. Its enclosed oil-painted Pietà is in the style of the Jesuit Seminary of Painters, which fled Nagasaki for Macau in 1614. Curious are the as yet undeciphered signs on the doors' interiors, for example a cross featuring one point in each of its four angles. This same sign appears in the signatures of Luís Frois and Manuel Dias Jr., Portuguese Jesuit friars important in the Japan and China missions. With its assemblage, typology, wooden structure, oil painting, and lacquer decoration, this oratory fuses, within the Jesuit realm, the newly evolved Christian Japanese and Christian Chinese styles. In this way, portable implements requested by the Jesuits on Japanese soil undoubtedly influenced these religious artifacts. In adapting native features to Jesuit taste and preference, Japanese Nanban lacquer decorations adapted contemporary Kodaiji style, while Chinese Nanban style lacquerware used traditional Chinese techniques and motifs. What do these observations indicate? They point to the Portuguese enclave of Macau and southern China, the Jesuit strategic center from the late 1560s onward, strongly interlinked with the Japanese mission. Jesuit institutions trained students of various backgrounds, and Christians who fled Japan between 1614 and 1639 found refuge. In Macau, the Jesuit painting seminary from Nagasaki resumed training students in the copying of European religious paintings. The close link to Nagasaki via maritime trade provided opportunity for the exchange of know-how and aesthetic conventions. The hanging oratory in Porto suggests that over time, likely after Japan's expulsion of Christians, an increasing technical approximation to Japanese models and commingling of shapes, techniques, and styles appears. Their commission and production probably involved Japanese refugees that included craftsmen. The question of Macau as the locale of lacquer manufacture remains unsolved. Historical descriptions by European visitors often note that no products were manufactured within the city limits, and that everything came from Canton. but solid if circumstantial technical and historical context suggest some concrete role, whether in commission of objects, the social mingling of artisans and refugees, and Macau's position as the nerve center of Jesuit presence in East Asia. The Asian Civilizations Museum in Singapore has acquired several lacquered Luso-Asian items related to the maritime trade or the Catholic missions in the past decade. In the Christian Art Gallery is exhibited the Jesuit lectern, and in the Court and Company section this writing chest, among others. In 2019, this outstanding oratory has been acquired that combines all the characteristics of this type of Luso-Asian religious items. Its architectonical structure corresponds to that of Mannerist altars and wooden implements in 16th and 17th century Christian churches in Europe and Portuguese India. The exterior features elaborate carving work on the pediment and the predella, and in the interior it is equipped with a niche flanked by double columns that support a semicircular arch. This interior space was destined to house a religious statue, like the Virgin and Child, now missing, as is the case with other Indo-Portuguese oratories. But in contrast to Jesuit items, this depicts the emblem of the Augustinians, a crowned double-headed eagle with a flaming heart pierced with arrows. When I previously said that all pieces are portable, I have been surprised by this shrine that stands out for its dimensions. But also, its intricate decoration in the carved areas is remarkable, with previously unseen gold leaf decorated elements with distinct textures. Incomparable portable objects like chests or oratories, the carvings usually are completely gilded. Its exceptional size and the presence of an inventory number indicate it has been used in an institutional context, perhaps equipping a chapel or church. And indeed, in 1589, Spanish Augustinian friars from the Philippines founded the monastery of St. Augustine in Macau. Later, these Spanish friars have been substituted by Portuguese Augustinians. Even though not being a Jesuit commission, but obviously destined to the Order of St. Augustine, this oratory again displays Nanban style decoration on its exterior carcass sides and doors. Though very much worn, Chinese auspicious flora and fauna motifs of tree peonies, plum and magpies, pheasants, peacocks or dogs are still visible, here in a combination of gold leaf and red lacquer. The analysis of its lacquer coating is currently ongoing. Surprisingly, and in contrast to its rich and virtuous gold decoration, the coating consists of a single body lacquer layer. Obviously, different orders interacted or used the same contacts. This item raises new questions and adds to the wider phenomenon of these pieces. These Luso-Asian religious items distill the transcultural mingling characteristic of their period. The spread of people, the exchange and transmission of objects, the distribution and trafficking of materials, and the dissemination of motifs. Did these objects comprise an export production for European markets? No, I'm sure that this is not the case. Obviously, their extreme individuality indicates single or small group orders mainly employed locally. Occasionally exchanged within different missions, they reached Europe as gifts or souvenirs, or returned with their owners. As singular as each assemblage is their geopolitical conjuncture and pivotal place in world history. These items contributed to evolving European taste and presaged demand for exotic lacquer embellishments in the following centuries. In this way, these Luso-Asian works predicated the organized export production established in the exclusive Chinese foreign trade center of Canton from the mid-17th century onward. Material manifestations of a short period of world history, these pieces bear evidence to a natural pattern in which the circulation of people resulted in artistic commingling and confluence on an interregional and even global level, spreading new artistic craft styles, materials, techniques, and tastes to reverberate in Europe and in the New World. Nonetheless, I add that to decipher their message, we literally must look below the surface. Thank you.